Battle down the hatches because it's time for some split decisions and hopefully biting commentary. If you think this video is too choppy or edgy, then I guess I accidentally failed to be a cut above the rest. Let me ask you something. Cleaving aside the obvious, what do you look for in a weapon? Well, today we'll find out as we rank and discuss the battle axes of Skyrim from worst to best. Once again, these rankings will be based primarily on visuals and aesthetics of the weapons themselves, and I will also once again be excluding duplicates and clones from the list. As always, if you find yourself enjoying the video, savage that subscribe button, and let's take a chop at this. Number 24, Ancient Nord Battle Axe. In all my rankings so far, it feels like the Ancient Nord gear just can't catch a break, but well, sucks to suck. Although the battle axes can be extremely fantastical and cartoonish as we'll see, the Ancient Nord Battle Axe remains my least favorite looking among the bunch. This is just a strange axe, and it barely looks functional. Like other Ancient Nord gear, it's probably more of a ceremonial or design piece than an actual usable weapon. While that might track, as these are likely only intended for burial rites, it's still an extremely unappealing design and aesthetic for me. There's not really much I like here, as the head of the axe features those thin and fragile looking connective parts that are at odds with the weapon type it's featured on, and the gross green and rotted appearance of the grip and handle make a reappearance, and the overall dark and dull colors maintain this particular lineup as one of my least favorites within the game. It's definitely no ordinary looking weapon, but still disappoints even in its somewhat unique appearance. Number 23, Drain Blood Battle Axe. The Drain Blood variant of the Ancient Nord axe with its unique appearance and enchantment deserves a mention, and that's pretty much it. While ethereal weapons are very hit or miss for me in Skyrim, this is a very large miss, as the ghostly effect does nothing to help the overall disappointing design of the axe in general. Such a badass name deserved better, and I'll leave it at that or I'll just be drained already. Number 22, Nord Hero Battle Axe. While improvements are made here with the new burnished steel and non-rotten grips, the design still remains a weak point for me overall. The Nord Hero is much better than the Ancient Nord in appearance, but I'll be honest, outside of the footage you're seeing now, I don't think I've ever once used this axe within the game. With very specific types of armor, this might not actually look that bad, and its relatively grounded appearance can blend fairly seamlessly into the world of Skyrim, and that's about all the praise I can really give this thing. Number 21, Dwarven Battle Axe. This axe gets a loud and resounding "nyeh" for me, as I find its design extremely bland and forgettable. Yet another weapon I have rarely if ever used, the Dwarven Battle Axe, is another disappointment, as I feel like this is a weapon type ripe with potential given Dwarven aesthetics within the Elder Scrolls. I can appreciate what they're going for with a very angular and fairly utilitarian design like other Dwarven gear, however I just find the War Axe much more compelling and well executed than the Battle Axe. The head of the axe just doesn't appear all that threatening or dangerous, and as a result, wielding it feels very lacking. The strange block of metal that caps the back and tip of the blade are almost awkward and clash with the rest of the design to me for some reason. But I'll give it a few points here for looking like you could grip the head itself and use it to almost punch enemies, so that's kinda cool, although obviously not reflected within any gameplay at all. The grip and haft are also well done, as well as the details on the head of the axe itself, with lots of intricate details further reinforcing the uniqueness of Dwarven gear in general, and the longer I review it, actually the more I can appreciate what was done here. However, overall I just find it more bland than almost any other battle axe within the game. A fairly solid yet unexciting axe, this Dwarven piece of gear with a few tweaks could have stood just a little bit taller. Number 20, Amber Battle Axe. This is kind of embarrassing, but there's only a single flaw that holds the Amber Battle Axe back for me, but the fact that the blade's head of this double-headed axe ends where they do drive me a little crazy. Compared to the more sinister rounded Amber War Axe, I find the Amber Battle Axe a little disappointing, as I felt like it would look way more badass if the blades had a more complete arc to them. That being said, the Amber Battle Axe isn't bad at all, with the amber on this weapon in particular looking very appealing and unique. The connective bits of metal that bind the amber to the haft are a nice touch, and I think it's a very well realized weapon in this particular lineup. I don't love the haft, especially the bit connecting the handle to the head, but again, a bit of a nitpick there. I'm curious to hear comments on the double versus single-headed design for axes in general in Skyrim and just video games, as I find in fantasy games I definitely have a preference for the much more unrealistic and non-traditional double-headed axe. They really don't have much bearing historically in warfare. Used more for wood cutting, double-headed axes really aren't that common in history, as the sheer weight of them in comparison to their utility didn't make a whole lot of sense. And in Skyrim's sake, as we'll see, double-headed axes are kind of the standard. Regardless, the Amber Battle Axe, despite what I may enjoy about it, stays in the bottom half of my list. Number 19, Soon's Judgment. Okay, I know my hypocrisy and subjectivity will be laid bare here, as I will undoubtedly criticize axes within this very list for looking unrealistic and non-functional, while at the same time ranking them higher than what is probably the most historically accurate looking axe within the entire game. But it's my list and I do what I want, so here we are. Especially considering the Norse tone and aesthetic of Skyrim, Soon's Judgment fits right into the world while also looking completely functional and deadly. This Creation Club edition is a solid weapon for any true son of Skyrim, but I still prefer some of the more outlandish and unrealistic designs of other axes, and honestly, this is an axe I have barely used within the game. Ironically, the realistic single-headed shape and design of this axe head is very unique when compared to other axes, yet still I just sort of find it a forgettable addition to the lineup. The leather wraps on the haft and near the head are a nice touch, and the Stormcloak sigil is of course a necessary addition considering this is the Stormcloak champion's weapon. While it might be too soon to judge, Soon's Judgment isn't quite my favorite. Number 18, Orcish Battle Axe. Probably the most fitting weapon type for a traditional Orcish warrior, the Orcish Battle Axe, while not my favorite, does have some very interesting design elements that I think are executed with varying degrees of success. I can really appreciate how unique and savagely brutal it appears in general, with its single-headed jagged appearance matching well the warriors who wield it. It looks adequately heavy and deadly, capable of smashing and slashing through even the toughest armors and hides, and for some reason I get heavy Klingon vibes from it, which is fitting as Klingons are basically just the orcs of Star Trek. I'm sure some Trekker will come along telling me how wrong that simple analysis is, but whatever nerd, I said what I said. The dark greenish orichalcum metal looks great, as it does with all Orcish weapons, and like I said, it looks perfectly functional. However, I can't help but feel that there was a missed opportunity to do something a little more distinct with the Orcish Battle Axe. As it stands, it's just kind of there, a somewhat unique yet passable design that gets the job done. Fitting for orcs maybe, but I would have liked to see a larger play on the war axe, as I feel that axe head is much deadlier and more compelling in its appearance. I don't have much more to add to this one, so I'll just cleave it there. Number 17, Glass Battle Axe. Another unique single-headed axe, the Glass Battle Axe is yet another casualty of my nitpicking, as I enjoy like 98% of the design here. The flared shards of glass with its iconic wing-like shape look fantastic, and pretty much everything with the metal and connecting pieces to the blade are top-notch. The haft and handle are the standard intricate scales present on most glass weapons, and everything is what you'd expect to love from glass in Skyrim. However, that last 2% of the back end of the axe does absolutely nothing for me. While I don't know if another full blade would have looked good or not, see the war axe for an example here, and possibly those two could have been swapped in their designs, having all the glass weapons mirror and be perfectly symmetrical could be a fun little play on the glass idea. Regardless, I think a little something more than just the simple prongs of metal flaring outwards was needed on the back. As it stands, the Glass Battle Axe feels unfinished almost, and I think possibly a smaller glass blade would have really completed its design on the back end. It really is a fantastic design, I just wish it had a little more to put it over the edge for me. Number 16, Madness Battle Axe. Definitely one of the most unique battle axes within the game, the Madness Battle Axe with its open and skeletonized head is striking, if not slightly underwhelming to me personally. It's an awesome idea, with this chaotic madness ore almost haphazardly shaped into a jagged edge and placed within a disturbing and unique haft and grip, but there's something about it that prevents me from fully loving its appearance. I get that it's this sort of demonic infused ore that is likely unbreakable by mundane means, yet still I can't help but think how brittle the axe head itself looks. Given its open design, it looks like it will just absolutely shatter on impact, sending shards of metal tearing into my own face. I know none of that has any gameplay implications, yet still we discuss aesthetics here, and that's a big part of this wicked looking axe that bothers me. However, I can't deny the creativity and skill displayed in the modeling and rendering of this particular weapon, as the jagged lines that compose the head are extremely well done, and the juxtaposition of the haphazard blade with the intricately, almost immaculately designed haft does not go unnoticed, reinforcing the chaos of its origin. Well, Gorath, it does look pretty good. Number 15, Golden Battle Axe. Despite the weight of the weapon being a clear issue with the golden variant, as this massive axe head looks like it would barely be supported by its own haft, the Golden Battle Axe is nonetheless a very solid and unique addition to the axe lineup. This Creation Club edition looks more like something from Elden Ring than Skyrim to me, yet I'm here for it, as its intricate designs and attention to detail is very interesting. The grip is particularly cool, with the spirals making for an elegant yet still functional looking piece of gear. The massive axe head is of course the highlight, and while it's not my favorite within the game obviously, I think it's an extremely flavorful axe to use with specific heavy armor sets and builds. You'll just feel like a golden powerful warrior when wielding this thing as you cleave through the denizens of Skyrim with this Daedric crafted artifact. What I can't say is that it blends very well into the world and atmosphere of Skyrim itself, but in these types of cases I can give it a pass, as it's legitimately an item not of this world. Even still, hacking through poor low-level bandits with something this large and glorious is hard not to enjoy. Number 14, Iron Battle Axe. An iconic weapon to me, the Iron Battle Axe has this extremely rugged and brutal appearance that I find very appealing for the first little bit of my Skyrim adventure. While like other iron, it's quickly outclassed and outpaced by pretty much any other type of gear you find, there's a distinct deadliness in the shape of the iron axe head to me. The general wicked curve of the blade merging into a brutal spike make this axe look extremely dangerous on either end, and in functionality is probably more useful in combat than a simple double-headed axe, as the spike could be flipped and easily utilized as a sort of war pick, puncturing into the scales and armors of whatever unfortunate creature is on the receiving end. Again, not something necessarily reflected in the gameplay at all, but still fun to imagine and visualize as you journey with it. The haft is where the Iron Battle Axe falters a bit for me, as its leather-wrapped dark wood looks a little stunted and thick to be wielded comfortably. Even still, an absolutely iron solid pick within the lower levels of a new playthrough. Number 13, Steel Battle Axe. Who needs fancy Daedric artifacts when you can instead simply wield some solid Nordic steel? The Steel Battle Axe, like other steel gear, remains one of the most iconic weapons within the entire game for me, and simply just seeing it invokes many nostalgic memories of battling Draugr and dragons while wielding this massive weapon. Like other steel gear, I give points to the battle axe for its intricate swirling etched patterns and design, and I think the actual axe blades themselves, while completely oversized, strike a good balance between realistic and fantastical. The weapon just looks brutal when wielded or when simply stowed on the back, and clearly communicates pure aura to me. Even still, the over-the-top size of the Steel Battle Axe definitely screams fantasy RPG in a way that others don't to me for some reason, but considering this is in fact a fantasy RPG, I think I can give it a pass for that. The leather wrappings and various bolts holding the bits of metal and weapon together are a nice touch, as well as the reinforced ridge of steel that runs down the middle, giving the weapon much more heft and sturdiness in its appearance. In general, this is a weapon that looks more than capable of battling the more powerful and large beasts found within the wilds of Skyrim, and while not my favorite, has a solid position in the middle of the pack. Number 12, Dark Battle Axe. Consider me darkly seduced, because this snake-themed battle axe looks incredibly cool with certain armors and character builds. Much like the Dark Seducer Warhammer, I really appreciate the snake motif and theme present on this weapon, and really even more so than the Warhammer, considering its double-headed design is legitimately double heads of snakes. The curling snakes leading up to the blades are awesome, and the shimmering blackened metal of the weapon definitely gives it a dark aura not seen in very many other weapons in the game. As ridiculously large as the blades themselves are, this weapon looks really powerful and dangerous, which is fitting considering its dark origins. The silhouette I find very intriguing, as the blades have this extremely flared out appearance, looking very much like bat or demon wings spreading outwards to consume the life of whatever poor wretched soul gets struck by it. The etched curves and layers of metal accentuating the blades are a nice touch too, and overall I find the Dark Battle Axe a fantastic, if not slightly oversized addition to the axe lineup within Skyrim. That being said, it does match a very specific character and aesthetic that others may not be confined to. I won't keep you in the dark. If you're going for a more demonic, evil, or gothic character, few do it better than this deadly battle axe. Number 11, Elven Battle Axe. I find it increasingly hard not to just love elven gear in Skyrim in general, as it feels like it's one of the most consistently realized motifs and designs across the entire game. The elven aesthetic with its eagles and golden swooping curves is just so awesome, and it helps that almost every other piece of gear utilizes it extremely well, with the battle axe being no exception here. On this one, we find the eagle making up the back end and middle of the single-headed axe, with its wings spreading backwards to make up the extremely curved blade. It's complete fantasy, as the blade looks way too thin and fragile enough to break within a single swing. But unlike the Madness Battle Axe, for some reason I can look past the apparent fragility of the elven axe, probably due to its elven origins. It is funny to me how elegant and thin this weapon appears compared to the more solid and blocky design of the elven war axe, considering this is the two-handed variant, but I find it refreshingly unique and sleek compared to other battle axes. When I think elven, this is the exact type of graceful and artistic weapon I would imagine they would use, and for me it gives other lower battle axes the bird. Number 10, Ebony Battle Axe. And here we become Monster Hunter within Skyrim, as this weapon head is large enough to rival even those found in the most fantasy of fantasy series. The Ebony Battle Axe is just way too big, a complaint I am personally not familiar with at all. But somehow it just works. I know it's cliche to say at this point, but having bandits fearlessly charge a fully armored dragonborn wielding a weapon like this with nothing but an iron sword, a sweet roll, and a prayer will never not be funny to me, as this weapon looks straight out of an anime about a man who cuts mountains in half. The Ebony Battle Axe lives up to its power relative to other battle axes, and given its size, looks more than capable of squaring up against even dragons. The traditional ebony swirling patterns is most apparent on this weapon, and it features many small details and design elements I enjoy, including its very unique overall silhouette and shape. Even still, while I can appreciate just how unique it is, I find the cartoonish size a little bit too much at times, and where in cases as I may want a more grounded or immersive appearance for my character, this weapon is almost completely ruled out. Still a fantastic addition deserving of a spot in the upper half of the list. Number 9, Wuthrod. While it's not my favorite, I can't deny the iconic nature and standing of Wuthrod within the world of Skyrim. Being a weapon with one of the more involved and deeper quest lines, Wuthrod deserves a unique and badass appearance, and for the most part it received one. Wielding Ysgramor's signature weapon as a Nord warrior is pretty fantastic, and a perfect companion for any racist looking to cleanse their land of those annoying and invasive elves, as it not only features a unique enchantment that does bonus damage to their kind, but a weapon design and motif of an elf's screaming face as it's being cleaved in two. Wuthrod is definitely an intriguing and hardcore battle axe that, while I may not fully love in its appearance, I have to rank higher due to the additional flavor and history surrounding it. Ysgramor was no slouch, and this massive battle axe is a testament to his skill and power as a warrior. Given all of that, it does really add to the epic feeling of wielding this thing in battle, with its uniquely shaped blades and axe head. It's a very interesting, almost block-like design that isn't seen in other battle axes within the game. And while I personally don't think it looks quite as deadly or vicious as other battle axes I may have ranked below it, I can't really bring myself to put this badass blade any lower in the list. Number 8, Stalrim Battle Axe. It's time to just chill out because the Stalrim Battle Axe is here. Once again, while we may have a cartoonishly oversized double-headed blade, this one is just cool. A very nicely designed weapon, the Stalrim Battle Axe, unlike the War Axe, features a much more satisfying full arc with its blades, and it's a very unique and iconic weapon that immediately stands out to me. While like the Ebony Battle Axe, it may be limited in its appeal to certain types of character builds and armors, I can't deny just how satisfying this thing is to use and see on your character. Like pretty much all other Stalrim, the appearance of the material itself is super satisfying to me, with the textures and lighting giving the Stalrim an appropriately fantastical and otherworldly vibe. The massive blades of the axe with their extreme curves just look menacing, and the bits of Stalrim present just below the axe head and capping the pommel, or is it a pommel on a battle axe? I'm not sure. Regardless, they look great as well. I particularly enjoy the connective bit of metal fusing the blades to the handle, featuring some intricate engravings of its own and literally bringing the model together. Strapping two massive blades of magical ice onto a handle to wreck shit will never not be cool. Number 7, Headman's Cleaver. Now this is maybe more of what I picture for an orcish battle axe. The Headman's Cleaver, with its massive blade head and unique appearance, gets rated so highly because this is really the closest we get to a halberd or polearm within the game outside of mods, even if it is a Creation Club edition. While spears and polearms are tragically cut from the base game of Skyrim, I can do my best pretending I'm using one while running around wreaking havoc with the Headman's Cleaver. And while I haven't really discussed stats or gameplay much, the fact that the Cleaver shares the same base damage as the Daedric Battle Axe, albeit with a slower swing speed, doesn't hurt it either. This brutal executioner's weapon is right at home with a savage warrior, and is my preferred heavy axe to use as an orc, as I feel like it just fits so naturally there. The blade's unique shape is of course the standout here, being little more than a jagged hunk of metal bolted to a handle with an interesting flat top and harsh edges that make it look more than capable of removing the heads from the mans when necessary. Cleave it up to the orcs to design such a brutal and satisfying weapon. Number 6, Bound Battle Axe. The bound weapons in Skyrim for the most part remain an extremely flavorful and badass addition for any spellcasting warrior, and the battle axe is one of my favorites in the bunch. While yes, like other bound weapons, it simply uses the Daedric model with some added effects, for some reason, much like the bound bow, the effects really add a lot for me here. The wisps of energy streaming from the battle axe make it look just incredibly awesome, as your character manifests death itself in their hands. There's something innately satisfying in summoning pure arcane power from the ether just to manifest a massive battle axe to crush enemies with. While I'm sure I'm bound to get some flack for my opinions, I nevertheless love this particular spell and axe. Number 5, Nordic Battle Axe. Despite being number 5, the Nordic Battle Axe might actually be the one I've used the most, as my true son of Skyrim Nord warrior in full Nordic gear rocked an enchanted version of this axe for a good amount of my playthrough. The unique shape of this axe's head is extremely interesting and compelling to me, with an almost inverted blade that looks equal parts wicked and dangerous. Much like other Nordic gear, while it does look a little too advanced or modern in both its design and appearance and texturing, it's still an incredibly awesome weapon that deserves a spot high within the list. The traditional Nordic curved end of the haft looks really good with the overall shape and size of the weapon, and the fur is of course a nice touch as always. The blade shape is of course pure fantasy, but something about this weapon just appeals to me quite a bit, and it's one of the few battle axes that look good when stowed on the back in my opinion. I get why the models sit up so high on the character's back, but for some of these axes it just looks really strange and silly. Also, looking at it now in the model, the textures and steel look more like something from Dishonored 2 than Skyrim, but you know, I'm all here for it because that's an incredible aesthetic. This vicious axe deserves a spot high in the list. Number 4, Dragonbone Battle Axe. When it comes to Dragonbone gear, the battle axe has to be one of the most overall intimidating and imposing weapons within the game. The rough serrated edges of the bone look amazing here, and it's probably one of the more over-the-top designs, once again looking like something straight out of Monster Hunter. Something about those bone textures is just done so well. Maybe it's the juxtaposition of the darker metal of the grip compared against the lighter bone, but I think it's just a fantastic looking weapon worthy of any powerful endgame Dragonborn. I think the actual blade of the axe has one of the cooler shapes within the game. I've said it multiple times, but wielding the bones of slain dragons in combat will never not feel flavorful and badass, and the battle axe encompasses that fantasy perfectly. Much like the iron battle axe, the brutal spike of bone at the back makes this axe look just as fearsome as it would be effective at puncturing and piercing pretty much anything you swing it into. This is a bona fide weapon of mass destruction, well deserving of a spot within the top 5. Number 3, Daedric Battle Axe. The most heavy metal weapon in the game, the Daedric Battle Axe is so ridiculously over the top that I can't help but love its straight up electric guitar vibes. It's easily my favorite Daedric weapon within the game, solely due to its completely outlandish and terrifying aura. I'll be the first to admit that it's a bit goofy how blunt the edge itself appears, and like most things in Skyrim, it's just way too dummy thick. Even still, the serrations along the edge and its completely unique profile and silhouette make it a joy to wield. The standard Daedric ominous red glow against the blackened demonic metal is of course a great touch, and it's a fantastic weapon for any dark warrior or evil plate-wearing menace, tearing across the wilds of Skyrim, inspiring fear in the hearts of all. I've been the first to admit that the Daedric gear in Skyrim is not my favorite by far, but the battle axe just does it for me, probably because it's an intrinsically over-the-top weapon type that lends itself to large, bombastic pieces of gear. If you are absolutely hell-bent on wreaking havoc, it's hard for this axe to not make the cut. Number 2, Shadow Rend. Much in the same vein as the battle axe, Shadow Rend is another completely fantastical and fearsome weapon, one that looks more fitting for a Dark Souls boss than a Dragonborn. This Creation Club edition is another returning artifact from the Shivering Isles, and it's funny just how many artifacts and weapons we see returning from that legendary expansion. Shadow Rend can technically take 2 forms, but of course I will focus on Dat Axe here. Shadowy streams of power mark the uniqueness of this blade, and its otherworldly stone-like design evokes an aesthetic of dark power and malice. It certainly helps that Shadow Rend is a badass name for a weapon, and I'm glad it lives up to the hype here. My only slight gripe here is with the grip, in that it's fairly simplistic, but given the intricate detail worked into the axe head, I can give that a pass, as more added here probably would begin to look way too over-designed. While again, gameplay hasn't really been a consideration, I find Shadowrend's unique enchantment kind of situational and lame for a large, imposing two-handed weapon. There are some spells like the cloak spells that make it useful, but making enemies weaker to magic when struck with a massive two-handed weapon just feels a little pointless. But even still, cleaving through the various monsters and enemies of Skyrim with Shadowrend will make you feel like an absolute boss. Number 1, the Rueful Axe. Make enemies rue the day they crossed you with my favorite battle axe within the entire game. The Rueful Axe, in addition to its power and enchantment, is simply the best looking out of them all in my humble opinion. Okay, the haft is only decent, I'll give you that, looking dangerously close to Forsworn trash with its rough leather wrappings and tufts of random feathers, but it's not a deal breaker, as the axe head is one of the coolest designs within the entire game. Featuring snarling or howling werewolves worked into the blade, a little bit of irony from Clavicus Vile himself considering its history, this axe is an absolute beast with a fearsome and dangerous edge that makes your Dragonborn look like a badass. I love how the fur of the wolves is worked into the metal, creating these serrated edges within the inner curves of the blade, and the blade's edges themselves have lots of little cool nicks and details showing the dangerous history of this artifact. The biggest problem with the Rueful Axe is how you obtain it, not only being tied to one of my least favorite quests ever, one that makes you follow Barbas the Talking Hound across what feels like the entirety of Skyrim for endless hours, but also requiring you to kill the poor pup with the weapon itself. I'll mercilessly slaughter bandits and people all day, but you ask me to kill a dog in a game, albeit an annoying talking one, and that just never sits right with my conscience. Even still, beautiful and fearsome, the Rueful Axe is simply one of the best looking weapons within all of Skyrim, and remains my favorite battle axe in the game. And there you have it, every battle axe within Skyrim highly subjectively ranked. Let me know in the comments what I missed, or what your favorite axe is. And if you enjoyed, once again, like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.